Well, I actually told you a mistruth in the last message. It's not the end for this week, so it's good news. We're reading chapter 10 as well this week. It's just that chapter 9 was chunky. So, getting on with chapter 10, I wonder if we'll get to Leo 5-minute professor. The Sunfire's onboard lights created a cycle of days and nights, marking the passage of time. It was 3 whole days before Lucky's first session with Bixa. He spent every one of those days dreading it. In the meantime, he found his way around. The ship was compact, and he was surprised to discover he'd already met the whole crew. It was a strange group. 2 old aliens, 2 young, and no one in between. That's it then, those 4. Lucky wondered how they'd come to crew together. Perhaps they were a family. Frolics and Bixa certainly quarrelled like brother and sister. Yet Mystica and Nox seemed too old to be their parents. It was puzzling, but he didn't feel he could ask about it. After his discussion with the captain, he kept his distance from them. He knew he needed them, but he still feared them. Even Frolics and Mystica, who seemed to want to help him. He couldn't afford to make them angry or get anything wrong. He couldn't imagine what they might do to him, especially Bixa and Captain Nox. So he did his best to keep his end of the bargain. He spent hours down in the hold, cleaning the ship's toilet, though he was dismayed to learn that cleaning toilets in space was just as disgusting as cleaning toilets anywhere else. He polished floors and vid screens, though it was frustrating when he knew the ship could do the job far better. He helped Frolics keep the dark matter drive clean, though his occasional glimpses of the cockpit only made him wish he could help fly the ship instead. His body slowly healed itself. His knees hurt less every day, but he never stopped feeling those waves of homesickness or that burning hole inside him. Sometimes he felt overwhelmed with guilt that he was alive while his mother was not, that she'd sacrificed herself for something as worthless as his survival. Sometimes he felt furious at her for landing him on this alien ship and leaving him with so little explained. Most of the time, though, he missed her horribly. It was so lonely without her. Mealtimes were the worst. If she'd been with him, they would surely have eaten together. Instead, he ate alone. While the aliens had their own food, Mystica prepared what she called human food for him. It had no flavour and smelled synthetic, but he was grateful she'd made the effort and ate it up dutifully. He slept alone too, on one of the hammocks in the main cabin. Fortunately, he didn't wake up naked again. So he hasn't had any more of those moments. Surrounded by smoke and ashes. He shuddered when he thought about those things. He just couldn't make sense of them. He placed his faith in his father. He would be the one to explain it all. So Lucky did his best not to think about Captain Nox's warnings of things beyond the wall. All he knew was he had to get there, whatever it took. And so time passed as they travelled through the stars, voyaging out of the Aries system, through Taurus and past the twin suns of Gemini. He was hoping Bixa had forgotten about training when she shook him awake one morning. "Bye," she said. "Come with me, it's time." She strode off through the cloistered corridors. He staggered and stumbled after her. He still couldn't get used to walking on the curved floors. He was relieved when at last they reached a door, until he saw what was written on it. At the top of the door, in big cheerful letters, it said, "Bixa's quarters." Below, clearly added later, was the instruction, "Keep out." Finally at the bottom, in livid black capitals, "This means you." Lucky hesitated before this door, but Bixa flung it open, went in and immediately touched the wall screen. It filled with vidpics of an AXA singer, an intense-looking woman dressed in black, with curtains of long dark hair hanging over her face. She was rocking back and forth as she sang, her mouth wide open in a deafening banshee wail. She was making the loudest music Lucky had ever heard. Angry, raging music, with sounds like worlds ending, huge, violent, shattering sounds. The rest of Bixa's cabin was dedicated to fighting. There were mats and weights and charts, as well as a small but impressive collection of weapons. Also a tattered punch bag which showed every sign of having been hit very hard, very often. Almost as an afterthought, there was a bed folded up against the wall, with some clothes strewn around it. Bixa took up a position on a mat and faced him, scowling. She was the same height as Lucky, but he felt dwarfed by her ferocity. Her focused stillness. She didn't even blink. She just watched him across the mat, like a lioness watching her prey. Then she said something he couldn't hear. What he said? I said, are you ready? She yelled over the ear-bleed din. And then she began to move. She moved in the most mesmerising way. She flowed like a fish through water, like water itself. And Lucky stared at her in shock, recognising the way his mother had moved. Ooh. And Bixa hooked an arm around his throat and dragged him to the floor. Wait, he gasped as he hit the ground. What's that you're doing? Her fist stopped in midair a millimetre from his nose. He gaped up at her as she pulled her fist away and released him. But she didn't answer his question. Your turn, was all she said. The full horror of the situation hit him as he hauled himself up. She was about to smash my face in. She is not holding back. Whatever she's doing is deadly serious. If I don't some way to get through this, she's going to kill me. Bixa took up position on the mat again and confronted him. Lucky looked away, shaking. I said, your turn, she repeated frostily. What am I going to do? On the vid screen, the AXA singer reached the climax of her song and hurled herself into the crowd. It gave him an idea. Okay, you want to fight? Let's see how you like this. Ah! He screamed as he hurled himself at her like a madman. He tackled her, threw his arms around her middle. The momentum knocked her off balance, and he felt a moment of satisfaction until he realised he wasn't in control. He was accelerating, sailing through the air too fast. And Bixa? Where was Bixa? Oh, she was coiled up beneath him, suspended in perfect balance, and totally in control. She was bringing her hooves into his belly. No! He screamed as she uncurled her legs and flung him like a rocket at the wall. And it was the strangest thing. As he soared through the air, he thought he glimpsed the soles of the hooves. They didn't look anything like he expected. Not like animal hooves, more like some kind of metal. Flashing silver in his eyes. Back to my theory about the horns. There's something dubious there. But it was just a flash, the briefest glimpse, and smash! He hit the far wall hard and slumped to the floor. The room spun around him. On the vid screen, the crowd were applauding the AXA singer. Their cheering echoed in his ears as he lay there, groaning, gazing up at the battered old punch bag. Bixa turned off the vid screen and the applause stopped. She bounded across the cabin and stood over him, squinting down at his slumped form. Was she looking worried, or was he imagining it? I didn't break you, did I? She said a little stiffly. I didn't think you'd be so bad. Despite his pain, Lucky found himself bristling. Bad? You're terrible. I've never seen anyone so terrible at fighting. Yeah, well, I didn't ask for this. I don't even want to be here. Your stupid father forced me to train with you. He's not my father, snapped Bixa. Her needles flashed crimson and she looked so fierce for a moment that Lucky had to look away. But quickly her needles called. Look, I'm not making fun of you, she said. I'm just surprised. It's weird how bad you are. You don't know how to move properly or anything. You're so clumsy. It's like you don't even belong in that body. I'm stopping here by coincidence, but what if he doesn't belong in that body? What if, like some of you have said, he's an alien and should be in an alien's body? Back to, I called it my theory earlier, but it's Harry's theory. I think, Harry, you said it. Oh, you couldn't see the base of the horns. The hoofs. He can only see metal on the soles. Are they hiding something? Did disguising themselves to look like this when they're actually something else. Right, again, another long chapter, so I'll finish chapter 10 in the second video. Brace yourselves.